So hi guys, my name is Michael. I was an economics major coming out of college. I've been in the workforce for 5 years, two startup companies most recently, at a digital advertising company. Um, but I've always been interested in coding and data analysis, so decided to come here, and it's been really worthwhile so far. So I did my shiny project on Major League Baseball data. So I hope there's some baseball fans out there. Basically, what I did is I looked at one season. I looked at the 2012 season. I'll basically just walk you through the tool here. So it basically starts with this drop down here, where you select the home team. You can select any one of the 30 teams. And I'll basically, the plot will populate based on what team you select. So up here you can see it gives just reference as to where their home park is, what it's called. These boxes up here show basically their year-long statistics. So their winning percentage, the White Sox won over 52% of the games. Their average attendance was over 24,000. See their max attendance, min attendance, and standard deviation. So the cool thing about Shiny is that, as you can see from some of the other projects, that you can play around with it a ton. So I'll just show you some of the cool insights that I thought I found. But basically on the sidebar over here, you can play around with some of the inputs that I have, some factors that might influence attendance of games. So right here on the game time, you can select whether you want to just look at day games, whether you want to look at night games. So if you just want to look at day games for the Orioles, you can see that their average attendance was almost 31,000 compared to night games, which was 25,000. So day games typically draw more fans than night games do, and this was pretty much true across all teams in the league. Looking at another team, we'll look at the Detroit Tigers and look at temperature data here. So we could use this bar here to select a range of temperatures. These are all game time temperatures at the start of the game. So if you wanted to look at attendance for games that were just below 55 degrees, you can see the average attendance was 34,000. The minimum attendance was 22.5. And if we want to look at games over 55 degrees, we can see that there's a significant increase in those numbers. Once again, pretty intuitive. Typically warmer weather brings more fans out. This isn't true for every team. There's actually a lot of discrepancy between teams. You can imagine like Detroit, Michigan, they have some very cold days and also some very warm days. But if you were to look at a team like the San Diego Padres, where it's typically same nice weather out there, you're not going to see as much of a discrepancy. Moving to that, let's look at the Padres. And this weather data here. So just four kind of categories, whether the skies that day are either clear, cloudy, rainy, or some teams play in an enclosed dome, which the weather shouldn't really affect them or their fans too much. So if we just look at clear days, average attendance is about 27,000 compared to days when it's either cloudy or rainy, bad weather, a good drop off in average attendance. But if we look at a team that comes from an area of the country where weather isn't so good, like the Mariners, typically get a lot of rain out there. When it's clear, the average attendance is 19,000, but cloudy and rainy actually jumps up to 23. So fans in Seattle clearly don't mind the bad weather nearly as much. And so this next one here, promotions, this is actually the one that kind of first started getting me going on this attendance topic. I wanted to basically look at promotions that accompany in-stadium promotions. So anything that accounts for X number of fans that come into the stadium get a free hat or a bat or a bobblehead or something like that. I wanted to see if there was any increase in attendance when teams ran those types of promotions. So if we look at the New York Yankees, you can see with promotions, they didn't run a lot, and that is due to they didn't really have any effect. There was about a 200-person increase in promotions, whereas other teams, such as the LA Dodgers, without promotions, 38,000, and with promotions, almost 46,000. You can see there's a lot more points on the map here, which is clearly they're successful, so they're running a lot more. And then the last one here is just opponents' winning percentage. This actually didn't have nearly as much as an effect as I thought it would. My hypothesis was basically that when teams play opponents with better records, you typically get more fans to come out to see the better teams play, but really wasn't the case at all. There was very little variation in that. So moving on to my next graph, this is, you can play with all the same side inputs here. But the first graph over here shows the day of the week. Typically, this actually doesn't show too well for the Dodgers, but typically for almost all the teams, weekends performed much better than during the week games. Yeah, as you can see here with the Orioles, Friday, Saturday, Sunday did really well. And if you look here to the month chart, this really varied on the team's winning percentage. So the Orioles were pretty good that year. They won over 57% of their games. They were in the playoff race, so you can see basically in August and September, towards when the playoffs started, attendance started to spike. But if we looked at teams that didn't perform so well, teams that didn't perform so well, like the Astros, that only won 34% of the games. I think they were worst team in the league. Really no fluctuation throughout any of the months, and a slight decrease towards the end of the season. And this last tab, my last graph, similar to all the other ones, but it shows the trending data throughout the entire season. So the x-axis here, basically starting at 0 is the first game of the season, and 80 is the last home game of the season. Some interesting things here were, if we looked at a team like the Washington Nationals, had a really good year. I think they were actually the best team in the league that year. But you can see the start of the season, basically 0 through 20, the first quarter of their home games, they really weren't drawing a lot of fans. But then it seems that fans realized that they were a good team, picked it up. They were mostly above the MLB average after that point. But there are some teams where the standard deviation, the variance between games, really didn't matter at all. If we look at a team like the Boston Red Sox, for instance, they basically sell out every single one of their games, which is pretty amazing. There are a couple other teams like this, the San Francisco Giants, Philadelphia Phillies, but basically no matter what factor, no matter the weather, the temperature, when they played their games, they were pretty much selling out their stadium every time. And consequently, if you go back to this plot, you can see that they decided not to run any promotions because basically they were selling out all their games. So they ran, I think there's two here, there's one behind it. But that was kind of their strategy going forward. So I think this is a pretty cool tool, at least visually, to see what's going on in a particular season. There's a lot of next steps that I have to do with this. I'm actually, for our next project, involves web scraping. One of the biggest limitations I had with this was that the promotional data wasn't really available anywhere besides either just manually looking it up on websites, or what I plan on doing is web scraping it, which is why I was only able to run one season worth of this. But with web scraping, I should be able to get data back to 2009. And hopefully with that, I'll be able to run some regression analysis, make some predictions on the 2016 season as to basically what some attendance numbers would be for teams. So that's that. Feel free to play around with the data. And do you have any questions?
Is it well known that day games are more heavily attended than night games? I mean, every team in the league, except famously the Cubs,
Yeah.
Did the opposite. The lights because people came after work.
Yeah.
Is it surprising?
I was pretty shocked by it, but I think what's happening is it's the weekend games. So it's the Saturday, Sunday games that are drawing a ton of people. And they have all those during the day, pretty much throughout the league.
You could easily take those out.
Yeah, you can look at them.